in this video, I'm going to be showing you how I created my own custom Windows 10 ISO file that I'm going to be using for gaming. And just to give you a glimpse of what the installation will look like, if you click on your start button, you won't have any of those Windows apps included in Windows. I installed this Thorium browser as well as the Florp browser, but you don't even have to do that. And if we go ahead and just have a look at the background apps, for example, you'll see the only background apps that can run on our system is Settings and Windows Security. There's nothing else in this version of Windows. And if we have a look at the processes, it's also down to the 90s. You can get this even lower by just running the utilities that I use in this guide again after installing Windows from this custom ISO file. But without wasting any more time, let's get into the guide and let me show you how I created this custom Windows 10 deep loaded ISO. So we'll start off by downloading the official Windows 10 ISO file from Microsoft. And once you're on this page, you can then scroll down and you can download the media creation tool to create an ISO file. But if you're using a Chromium-based browser like I am, meaning you're using Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or Thorium like I am here, then you can press F12. You can click on these three dots here, click on More Tools, then click on Network Conditions. Then here in Network Conditions, you can just uncheck this box, then click on this drop-down menu and change it to Chrome OS. Then you can press F5 on the keyboard so it can reload the page. Then you can just close this developer options here. And at the bottom here, you'll be able to select the Windows 10 multi-edition ISO file. And then you'll be able to select your language. I'm going to choose English. And then you can download either the 32-bit or 64-bit version of Windows. I'm going to download 64-bit. And then it's going to start downloading the Windows 10 ISO file. But I have a few different videos on this channel showing you how to get this Windows 10 ISO file, and I'll link all of those down in the description of this video and in my written guide, which will also be linked in the description of the video. Once the Windows 10 ISO file has finished downloading, you can just copy it over to your desktop like I have here, and then I want you to right click on the desktop, go to New, and then create a new folder called VM Share. And then just drag that ISO file into the VMshare folder that's created on your desktop. This will make more sense later on in the guide, but for now just create this folder and then drag and save the ISO file inside of that folder. Now next, you'll need a virtualization software like VMware Workstation Player, or you can also use VirtualBox, which is another free virtualization program. You can use either one of them, but in this video, I'm going to use VMware, and I have separate videos on my channel showing you how you can enable virtualization on your computer and how you can install VMware or VirtualBox on your computer and then use it to create virtual machines. And I'll link those guides in the description of the video and in my written guide as well. And you don't have to use a virtual machine to create this custom ISO file. You can also just use a normal Windows installation and another drive in your computer, but this is the method that I'm going to be going with in this video. And once you've installed your virtualization software, to create a new virtual machine in VMware, you can click on Create a New Virtual Machine. Now I'm going to choose this option that says I will install the operating system later. Then click on Next. I'll leave Microsoft Windows selected. And for the version, I'm going to change that to Windows 10 64-bit. Then click on Next. I'll leave the virtual machine name and the location on the default. Then click on Next. And these disk capacity settings, I'll also leave on the default and then just click on Next. And then I'll click on Finish. That's going to create a virtual machine inside of VMware. And before launching this virtual machine, you can right click on this virtual machine, then click on Settings. And then we're going to change some settings. You can change the memory and processors depending on what your computer can handle. I'm just going to change it to 8 gigs of memory for my computer. And the processors I'll take up to 4. Then here where it says CD or DVD, SATA, click on that and then click on Use ISO image file. Click on Browse. And then you need to navigate to your desktop and then open the VMshare folder and then select the Windows 10 ISO file that you downloaded earlier. Then click on Open. Once that's done, at the bottom here, click on Add because we want to add new hardware. Then we're going to leave hard disk selected. Then click on Next. And then for the virtual disk type, you need to select whatever the recommended option for you is on your computer. For me, it's NVMe, but go ahead and select the recommended option for your computer. Then click on Next, create a new virtual disk. and then leave these settings on the defaults. Click on next and then click on finish, and then you'll have 2 hard disks inside of your virtual machine. We will need 2 separate disks to create the custom Windows ISO file. So once your virtual machine is set up in the same way as mine, you can go ahead and click on OK. And now we're going to switch on the virtual machine, and once we do that, it's going to prompt us to press any key to boot from the ISO file so we can install Windows. So you need to be ready to press spacebar so it can boot from the Windows 10 ISO file. So I'm going to click on this button to launch the virtual machine, and I'm just going to maximize this on the screen as well, and then I'll press spacebar when I see that message, and it's going to boot from the ISO file. Now you'll see the message there in the top left that says you can press Ctrl and Alt. If you can't seem to use your mouse on your computer, then you can use the mouse on the computer again, but otherwise you can just click inside of the VM and you'll be able to work inside of the virtual machine. So we've booted from the Windows 10 ISO file. I'm just going to change the time and currency format to my local settings, then click on next, and then click on install now, and this will just be a basic Windows 10 installation. Here I'll just click on I don't have a product key, and the Windows 10 version that I'll be using for this custom ISO file is Windows 10 Pro, and what you select here is important because your custom ISO file will always install this version of Windows that you select in this step. So I'm going to select Windows 10 Pro because that's what I use, then click on next, then click on I accept the license terms, click on next, click on custom, and then I'll select drive 0's unallocated space, then click on next, and that's going to start the Windows 10 installation. Once the Windows 10 installation is complete, you can just go through these normal setup screens and select the settings that you use on your computer, or you can just follow what I do. And if you have an internet connection, your virtual machine should be automatically connected to the internet as well, so it might download some updates during this process too, which is exactly what's happening right now. Then you can just choose how you want to set up your device. I'm going to log in with an offline account, a local account, and I suggest that you do that too. So I'll just click on limited experience down there. I'll just enter my username, and the password I'm going to leave blank. I'll just skip this, and I'm going to turn off all of these location trackers, but we're going to be tweaking that even more when we deploy this Windows 10 installation. So we finally reached the desktop, and I'm just going to close all of these notifications. And now I'm going to be deep loading this Windows 10 installation so I can optimize it more for gaming. And if I right click on the taskbar and open the task manager, we can just have a look at the process count of this fresh installation. And at the moment it's about 140. And like I said, this is just a normal out of the box Windows 10 Pro installation, which already is on 140 processes. And we're going to see how much we can get it down. So to deep load this Windows 10 installation, the first thing I'm going to do is right click on the start button, then click on Windows PowerShell, then just select yes. Then I'm going to run the following command, which will launch the Chris Titus Tech Windows utility. So I'll press enter to launch that. It's going to install Chocolatey and a whole bunch of other dependencies that's needed. Once it's launched, the first thing I'm going to do is go to the Updates tab, and then I'm just going to select the Security Recommended Settings. So I'm not going to be getting any of these featured updates. I'm only going to be getting security updates, which is what I want on this gaming version of Windows 10. Next, we can go to Tweaks, and then I'm going to select the Recommended Desktop Tweaks. So these are the settings that I've selected, and I'm also going to add and activate the Ultimate Performance Plan by clicking on this button down here. Now, once you've done that, you also need to just go to the control panel, and then I'm just going to change this view setting and navigate to the power options, and then click on show additional plans, and then activate that Ultimate Performance Plan. And I'm just going to change this setting to never, and then save the changes. And while we're in the control panel, I'll just go to the user accounts, and I'm just going to change these user account control settings, and then we can exit out of the control panel. But with these tweaks selected, the way that I like it, I'm going to click on Run Tweaks. And if we then go over to the PowerShell window, we should be able to see the tweaks in action. And what this tweak does, it removes Microsoft Edge. And you can't fully remove Microsoft Edge from Windows 10. There will always be some remnants left because it's part of the operating system, but it won't be able to be used at all anymore. So if I go ahead and open Edge, you see I can click on it, but it just never opens the browser. We're going to get rid of these shortcuts too. But once Edge is removed, we can close this window. Then we can head over to the other PowerShell window. And here it also says that the tweaks are finished. So once you've run those tweaks, just go ahead and restart the virtual machine before you do anything else. Then once it's restarted, we can go back and launch another PowerShell window as an administrator, and I'm going to run the same command. And it's launched the Christitis Tech Windows utility again. So now I'm just going to install another browser on this system, and I'm going to be installing Thorium, which is a Chromium-based browser, as well as Florp, which is a Firefox-based browser. But you can go ahead and install any browser that you want, and you don't have to install two, you can just install one. But I want to have both of them on the system, so I'll select both of them and then click on Install or Upgrade Selected. And then if we just make this window a little bit smaller, we'll see that it's installing Wingate, and it's downloading the license files and all of the dependencies. So once that's done, it'll automatically start downloading and installing those browsers to the computer. So while that's running, you'll see if I click on this Microsoft Edge shortcut, it doesn't open Microsoft Edge like I showed earlier. So I'm just going to select that and then click on delete, and I'm going to empty the recycle bin. And for these shortcuts at the bottom here, I'm going to right click, then change the search icon and hide it. I'll also hide this Cortana button. I'm going to unpin this Microsoft Edge shortcut from the taskbar, and let's just see if the Microsoft Store still opens. Yes, it does. So it still works. I'm going to be removing that too. But if you plan on using the Microsoft Store on your version of Windows, then don't remove it. So we'll just unpin all of that from the taskbar. We can also unpin people from the taskbar, and I'm also going to hide this Meet Now button. Then if we open the Start menu, I'm going to unpin all of these tiles to create a minimal small start menu. And I'm just going to right click on this Microsoft Edge icon here, then go to More and open the file location. Then I'm just going to delete this shortcut from the startup programs. And once again, I'll just empty the recycle bin. Once the installs are finished, you can then close the Christitis Tech Windows utility. And I'm just going to delete these shortcuts from the desktop as well, because I don't want anything to be displayed on my desktop. And I'm going to remove the recycle bin from the desktop as well. And I'm just going to pin it to the quick access. So I'll just drag it over to quick access, and then I'll have the recycle bin here. So I don't need it on the desktop. So I'm just going to right click on the desktop, click on personalize, then go to themes. Then click on desktop icon settings, and I'll just uncheck the recycle bin. But this is just personal preference because I like to have a clean desktop. Then this weather widget here, I'm just gonna turn that off as well and hide it. And then we have the file explorer and our two browsers down here. Now the next thing I want to do is remove all of these apps that we still have in Windows that hasn't been uninstalled yet. And to do that, I'm just going to use one of these browsers. I'll use Thorium, and I'm just going to do a search for O&O's App Buster. So I can download this App Buster tool. I'm just going to download that. Then I'll just run this file. Then inside of this app, I'll select Actions, then select all Windows apps, and then I'm going to click on Remove, and I'm going to remove all of these apps from the entire computer, the entire virtual machine. So I'll click on Yes, and then click on OK, and it's going to uninstall all of these selected apps that come pre-installed in Windows. Once it's finished successfully, I'll just close it, then exit out of the app. And I'm just going to clear the browsing data in this browser as well, or else it's going to be stuck inside of the ISO file. So I'll just clear all of the browsing data here, then close that. As well as I'm going to go to the downloads folder and just delete that file, and it's also not in the recycle bin. So the next thing I want to uninstall is Microsoft Store and OneDrive. I'll just right click on OneDrive and then click on uninstall, then select it here, click on uninstall so it can be removed from the computer. And then to uninstall the Microsoft Store, I'm going to launch another PowerShell window as admin. And to uninstall the Microsoft Store, I'm just going to run this command, and you should only run this if you're not planning to use the Microsoft Store on your computer. If you're going to use it to play Minecraft, then you should not uninstall the Microsoft Store. But I'm not going to be playing Minecraft, so I don't need the Microsoft Store installed on my computer. So next, let's just run through the Windows settings quickly, and I'm just going to make sure that all of the notifications are turned off because I don't want to be bothered by that. And I'll just switch to the tablet mode as well. And these settings are all personal preference, but this is what I do to get a minimal Windows 10 installation that's going to work for me for the games that I play. So I just want to have a look that all of these settings are turned off and that I'm not disturbed by any notifications or background apps. And you can see why I love using this method, because the only background apps that we can have running on the computer right now is settings and Windows security. And that's all that I want. I don't want any of the other built-in apps installed or running on this version of Windows that I'm going to be using primarily for gaming. So we've checked all that, and this is a completely clean user and Windows 10 installation. So what I'm going to do is I just want to restart this copy of Windows 10 quickly. And once it's started up again, I'm just going to open Task Manager. Then we can have a look at the background processes, and you can see that I'm down to about 50 processes after debloating this Windows 10 installation, and I'm pretty sure this will work pretty good for gaming. Now the next thing I need to do is click on the start button and then do a search for disk management. So I can open this create and format hard disk partitions window, and immediately it'll ask me to initialize the other disk that I added to this virtual machine. So you can leave GPT selected, then click on OK, and it's going to initialize the disk down here. Then you can just click on this unallocated space, right click on it, click on new simple volume, click on next, click on next, click on next, and then the most important thing that you need to do here is just change this volume label to data, because in the next step we're going to need to find this data volume. Then you can click on next and then click on finish, and it'll create that partition. And if we head back to this PC, we'll now see that we have our local disk C, which is our Windows installation. We also have our DVD drive where the ISO file is mounted, and then we have this clean data partition or drive here in the virtual machine, and we're going to be saving our custom Windows image inside of this partition here. So to do that, I'm going to launch settings, then go to update and security, then go to the recovery tab, then here where it says advanced startup, click on restart now, which will launch into the advanced recovery options of Windows 10. Go ahead and click on troubleshoot, then on advanced options, and then you want to select command prompt. Once it's restarted, just select your account to continue. If you have a password, enter that password. If you don't have a password, just click on continue and it'll open the command prompt. Now, this is where things can get a little bit confusing, but if you follow along to the step-by-step that I show you here, I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to create this custom Windows ISO file. So the first thing that I want you to do here is type C:, and then press enter, which will then take you to the C drive. Then type dir for directory and press enter. And then you need to check if this is your Windows installation drive. Your Windows installation will have the same folders that I have here, but it might not be necessarily on the C drive. If it's not on the C drive, just go to another drive letter by typing E:, for example, then pressing enter and then pressing dir again, so you can see which files are listed on that drive letter, and then do that for all of the letters until you get the files and folder structure that you see here on my C drive. So what we've determined with these two commands now is that my Windows is located on the C drive and that the E drive is the ISO file that we installed Windows from at the beginning. Now, next we need to find the data partition. So I'm going to type D:, to jump to another drive letter and then press enter and then press dir so I can see which files are on it. And we can see that the drive letter D is the data partition that we created earlier, which is exactly what I'm looking for. And we can see there are no files found on it because we don't have anything saved there yet. So once you've determined what the drive letter is of your Windows installation, where the Windows files is, in my case, it's the C drive, and you've determined which drive letter your data partition is, we can go on to the next step. And I'm just going to type X and then then press enter so I can jump back to X, which is like a root partition for this command prompt. So now the command that we need to run is the following. It's dism, then space / capture -image, then space / image file, then and then the drive letter where you want to save your custom Windows image. So in my case, it's on drive D, like we determined earlier. If I scroll up, D is my data drive, and that's where I want to save this custom image. So I'm going to enter D here, followed by a : then a /, and then I'm just going to type install.wim because that's what the file will be called on the D drive. Then you can follow that by a space / capture dir for directory then the letter C because that's where my Windows files are saved on the C drive. Then I'll follow that by a colon and a backslash, then press space / and then we just need to give it a name. So I'll type name colon and I'll just call this Windows 10. Once you've entered that, you can press enter on the keyboard and the DISM service will then start creating that custom Windows image file. So this might take a while. You'll just need to have some patience with it and wait until it completes successfully. Once it's finished, you're going to see that the operation completed successfully. Once that's done, you can type exit, then press enter, and you'll be taken back to this screen. And at this point, you need to click on turn off your PC because we want to turn off the virtual machine, and it will most probably close the virtual machine software as well. So just go ahead and reopen it. Now what we need to do is select our virtual machine, then right click on it, then click on settings, and then click on the options tab up here. And then where it says shared folders, select that, then click on always enabled, then click on add, then click on next. And then where it says host path, click on browse. And then you need to navigate to your desktop to that VM share folder that we created earlier. So select that, then click on OK, then click on next, and then make sure that enable this share is selected, then click on finish. And once you've done that, you can go back to the hardware tab, and where it says CD or DVD, just go ahead and uncheck this box that says connect at power on, and then click on OK. And then you can go ahead and click on this button to launch the virtual machine again. And I'm just going to maximize that again. And now it's going to boot into the Windows 10 installation again. Now, if you open the File Explorer and you go to the data drive, you'll see that you have this install.wim file, which is a Windows image file. And if you see this file, it means you've successfully created an image of your Windows installation. Now, to make that an ISO file that you can boot from, we need to do the following. And what you'll need to do is click on the Player tab up here in the virtual machine software, then click on Manage, and then click on Install VMware Tools. If you open your File Explorer, you'll see that you have the VMware tools inserted. Just double click on that and it's going to start installing the VMware tools inside of this virtual machine. And we need to install this with all of the default settings so we can get our shared folder to work, so we can create that custom ISO file that we can boot from and install Windows again. Once it's done, just click on finish, and then you'll need to restart the virtual machine again. Just go ahead and click on yes so it can restart. Once it's restarted, you can open the File Explorer, then you can click on the Network tab, and you'll get this prompt that says Network Discovery is turned off. Just go ahead and click on OK, then click on this ribbon up here and click on Turn on Network Discovery, then click on Yes, and then it should start loading a list of the computers on your network, but the one that we're looking for here is the VMware-host. And what I'm going to do here is just click on this PC and then go back to the Network tab, and it's going to display the VMware host. So I'll double click on that, then click on Shared Folders, and then we have that VMshare folder that's saved on our local computer's desktop. And if you open that, you'll have the Windows 10 ISO file that we used at the start of this guide. Now, before doing anything with this, let's just open a browser again, and then we need to download a software called AnyBurn, and we can get that from anyburn.com. So I'm just going to go to that web page, then click on download, and then I'll download the free 64-bit version. Once it's downloaded, I'll just open it, then click on I agree and just install it with all of the default settings, and then close the browser. Then once it's open, click on edit image file. Then you need to click on this folder so you can browse for the ISO file that's saved in the VMshare directory. So just click on the Network tab here, then click on VMware host and open these folders until you get to the ISO file that's saved on your local computer. Select it, then click on open, click on next, and then we're going to edit this ISO file. So what we need to do is we need to double click on this sources folder so we can open it. And then inside of this sources folder, you're going to find a whole bunch of files that are arranged in alphabetical order. And what we need to look for is an install file. So right here it says install.esd. Yours might say install.wim, but once you find this install file, you can select it, then click on remove, then click on yes, which will delete it from the Windows ISO file. Then you can click on add, and then you can navigate to your data partition or drive where you have your install.wim file, which is your custom Windows image. You can click on that to add it to this Windows 10 ISO file. And if you now scroll down until you get to the install file, you'll see it says install.wim. So it's added to the ISO file. Then you can click on next, and then it's going to save the ISO file to the same directory as your original Windows 10 ISO file. But you can just give this a different name, and I'm going to change the name of my Windows ISO to Windows 10-debloated. Then click on create now. It's going to take a while to create your custom Windows ISO file, and it's going to save it directly on your local computer. So it won't be saved inside of the virtual machine. You'll have access to it on your local computer. Once it's done, you'll see that it created the image file successfully. Then you can just exit out of Anyburn, and at this point you can shut down the virtual machine because we're done with it now. And once it's shut down and you open this VMshare folder on your desktop, you're going to see that you have the original Windows 10 ISO file that you used, and then you have this newly created Windows 10 debloated ISO. Now, just to show you that this ISO file does work, I'm just going to create another virtual machine and then boot from our custom ISO file and show you what it looks like if you install Windows using that ISO. So once again, I'll just create a new virtual machine, Windows 10. I'll leave all of that on the default, and I'm just going to give it some more RAM so it goes a little bit faster. And then the ISO file, I'm going to select my debloated ISO file and then click on close, then click on finish. And then I'm going to launch the second virtual machine that I created, and then just press spacebar so I can boot from the ISO file. Once again, let's just maximize the VMware player. Then we'll get to the normal Windows installation screen. Once again, I'm just going to choose my local settings for my region, then click on install now, select I don't have a product key, which will then automatically jump to the Pro version of the Windows installation because that's what we selected at the start of this video. Then just accept the terms, click on next, click on custom, then select the drive, click on next, and it's going to start the Windows installation. So now the Windows installation is finished, and you'll see if it starts up on this first boot, we don't have to go through any of the initial setup steps of Windows 10. It's just going to load directly into my user that I created, which is called memory. And it already has both of the browsers installed, and all of the other programs are uninstalled that I uninstalled while creating this custom ISO file. And if we go ahead and open the task manager on this brand new installation of Windows 10, now although these processes are a lot more than 50, which is what we had throughout this guide, it makes sense that some processes are turned on by default during the Windows installation. So the worst case scenario is you'll just have to run the Chris Titus Tech utility again and then run the recommended tweaks so it can just set the unnecessary services back to manual startup. But now you have your own custom Windows 10 ISO file with minimal programs on it and minimal Windows apps. If we go back to the background apps on here and have a look at that, you'll see they've all been stripped out. And this is a minimal installation of Windows 10. And if I reinstall Windows on my main computer, I'll be using this ISO file, which already has everything stripped out and the browsers that I use. And then I'll just go ahead and install the games that I want to play and the graphics drivers for my main system. So I hope this video was of some value to you. If it was, please like the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.